Hi, I'm Neil Mendes. I'm the CEO of Alpine Polytech, which is a company that I co-founded with my partner, Buck Slay. We are a material testing and equipment performance testing laboratory. I've been a member of the Energy Polymer Group, which before that was Energy Rubber Group, since 1994. I joined Green Tweed that year, and they had a meeting, and went to it, and it was excellent. I hadn't been to a trade meetings, that type of a thing in the past, but I immediately was able to, be introduced to a lot of my customers and the other portions of the supply chain. So it became very valuable, and I got very involved in very early. For the rubber division, I really became a member back when I became chairman of the Energy Polymer Group back in 2019. At that point, it was actually a requirement to be part of the ACS and the Energy Rubber Division, but didn't get fully engaged until about 2 years ago when I became area director. For the Energy Polymer Group, as I mentioned earlier, it was fantastic because there were the entire supply chain's there. And I think that in order to really understand your industry and understand your customers and what you're doing and being a professional, you need to understand the whole picture. The people that make the molecules, make the chemicals, that make the mill it, that mold it, that extrude it, all the way through to the finished, and the people that are using it at the very end of the process. When you understand that whole thing, you're so much more valuable to your customers and your company. And that's what I think that Energy Polymer Group's done. And now I'm finding that for the rubber division. So obviously the Energy Polymer Group is, focused more on energy transition, oil and gas, where the rubber division's much broader. So I'm finding a lot of context and a lot of understanding about materials that I knew of, but I didn't really understand them well. And so being part of this industry and going to the fall meeting where there's, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people there, and all types of booths and all types of equipment manufacturers. And it's extremely valuable to really understanding the industry well. So I was born in Columbus, Ohio, and went to high school in Northwest Ohio, and then ended up attending Miami of Ohio, even though I'm a big Ohio State Buckeye fan. All my buddies were going to Ohio State, and I thought maybe it'd be a good time to part ways, since it was a turbulent hy school years, let's just say. And so I made probably my first big boy decision and decided to go to college by myself at Miami, which was fortuitous. Had a great time there. Met my future wife, who was a few years younger than me, and so we've been married for 35 years. So when I went to school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to go into business. I knew that. At the same time, I was going between economics, and they had a thing called business psychology, which was basically, workplace and humans, and how they interact, which is kind of a new degree at that time. And so I ended up going into that, and almost minoring in economics, but I ended up sticking with the business psychology, which is now kind of industrial business. And I think it's served me extremely well. And I got offered to go tour with Marlboro Country Music originally for a 6-week tour. Well, it paid me over $1,000 a week to do that. And when I was interviewing for jobs that were offering $14,000 a year. I thought, wow, that's quite a stark difference. And so I started doing that, and I was pretty good at it, and started doing that. And I did that for 3 years. And I traveled around with major acts, Van Halen, David Lee Roth, Poison, and then Marlboro Country Music a second time. And after 3 years, I said, okay, it's enough of that. My fiance had graduated from college. She got moved to Houston, Texas, and I followed her there. And then I ended up joining, just interviewing and getting a job with Ryerson Steel. And so it got me into the materials business. And then from there, my the biggest customer was Baker Hughes, and the director of procurement took a liking to each other. He suggested I look at the company called Green Tweed, which, he did a lot of business with, he admired a lot. They had a lot of technology, and it was less commodity. Metals business was very commodity, where I didn't understand that at the time. But the rubber, plastic, polymer world was so much better sale. I mean, it was so much more down my alley. You really could show value, and certainly you needed to service your customers. You needed to hustle, and you needed to be competitive, and you needed all those other things. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a valuable lesson that you can learn. And it might be that, hey, that might not be an industry or segment of industry that I want to tackle, or maybe it's extremely exciting and it's something that I want to go into. And when people think well of you, throughout your supply chain, you end up getting recommended, right? And with Alpine, when we started Alpine in 2015, um, my partner knew a lot of people. He worked at Halliburton for a dozen years, ran their global polymer team in Carrollton, Texas. And I had been at Green Tweed for 20 years and had become a senior vice president. And so we both knew a lot of people. But what we ended up doing is combining forces. And because of the people that we knew and that they had trusted and we had worked with over the years, that our number one marketing is really is networking and being recommended by our customers and people who work with you. And favorite place, my wife and I went to Portugal. It's Portugal and Spain for 21 days, and we loved Portugal. We love Spain too, but Portugal was unique in that it's Europe. It's still you still really feel like you're in old Europe, but the food is spectacular. It's basically a coastal country. And so the seafood is spectacular. It's inexpensive. It's got a kind of an old world charm to it, but still a modern country. It's very safe. The people are wonderful. They're at a nice pace. They're not rushed. But they're not slow. They kind of take the afternoons off, kind of like Spain, a lot of places. And we just loved it. And I grew up when I was younger outside of Columbus in Delaware, Ohio. And there was a place called Eccles Lake. And it was a lake that got converted into what they called it as an aquatic gym. And they had a cable that went all the way across the lake, and they had rings that hung down, and you swung from ring to ring, and to get all the way to the other side. And they had a barrel that was on a cable, and it was painted with had sand in it, and so you could get a grip. And they'd have contests. You'd run, on the barrels and stuff like that, and run people off and do all this kind of stuff. So it was a crazy place. And when the people, the Eccles died or retired, it closed down, and it went out of business, I guess, and didn't have anybody to pass it along to. But I have very, very fond memories. And yeah, just in closing, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you, Heather. The Rubber Division is really an outstanding group of people. The people are really dedicated to improving our industry, training people, developing, the market, just, the whole package. And so I highly recommend getting involved. And it's like everything, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And so for young folks, when you're getting into your industry, get involved in your trade groups and things, because you're just going to get so much more out of it than you put in. And looking forward to the Global Polymer Summit in Cleveland this year. Once again, it's great for me because I get to go home. I'll probably catch a Buckeye game on one of the 2 weekends, or maybe both. They have 2 home games at Sandwich that week in Cleveland. Cleveland's a great time of the year there. Get there and catch a Guardians game. It should be a great time.